You want to come home because where you are, the first world soft life issues. Surely, rationally, someone would say, "Well, this is what I want in life: less problems. Like this, this is a good life. Why not raise your kids there? Have the best of first world? Rationally, why wouldn't you want that?"
I mean, I think there has to be, for me, there has to be more to life than just being born, having a good life, and then die. Why do you exist?
Do you
Yeah.
think because you're a global citizen at that point, not many things could scare you? I mean, if you've lived somewhere in the world where you were a minority and all of, like, do you think your tolerance level for uncertainty was a little bit more bolder than most people?
I would say,
Well, Wendy, welcome to the couch. I call it this is the entrepreneur's therapy. So welcome to the couch, and you know I've known you for a bit now. It's been an amazing long journey, and it's been super cool for me being a fly and just watching it happen. But maybe let's take it a step back and you just tell us and tell the viewers and listeners where it all started. Where did you grow up?
thank you so much, Miles. Thank you for having me, and I'm glad that I'm on a couch.
So you
Because,
can let it all out. You know what I
yes,
mean? It's like,
the journey of an entrepreneur, you do need a couch,
yeah.
and good ears, where it all started. It's a small village called K. It's K. It's pronounced like the letter K.
Okay. It's
Yes,
spelled how?
spelled Khey.
Oh, okay.
Yes, so in my language it sounds like even like the letter
It's
K.
okay.
So you're
Yeah.
like, oh,
Yeah.
yeah,
Where
yeah.
is it?
It's in Mopani district in Limpopo province.
Okay.
Yes, so it's a small village between Guyana and Palabora.
Hmm.
Yes,
I
so
always get amused like when people say village. Like what is a village? Like to like is there it's just green and there's one house here and one over there. Like what's a village from a city slicker like me?
so a village would be a small place where there would be about between 100 and 200 households, right? And I'm thinking like probably my memory as a child, probably like 100 households.
Mm-hmm.
And what's there? It's green, green trees, big, beautiful, tall trees, Mopani trees predominantly, and then marula trees. And then some acacia, the ones with thorns and all that. Um, Dusty streets, and dusty by me I mean that paving was not a thing when I
Mm-hmm.
was growing up, so it was just sand.
Mm.
And in your parents' yard, like paving would be they would use the cow droppings.
Yeah.
Yes, so
Yeah.
you take that, you mix that with water to make it soft, and then you make patterns on your
Inside the
yard.
house or is this on
Both,
the yard?
both, both,
Okay.
both. I went through a transition of from inside the house doing that to the house having cemented like slab.
Yes.
So like there was that kind of evolution. Yes. So we had that in my grandparents' house. So there was the cow dug inside the house and then outside as
Does
well.
it not smell?
Not at all. It's even good because it repels mosquitoes.
Oh.
Yes, yes, not at all. Doesn't smell. It becomes the most normal thing to work with.
Wow, that's super cool. And you said it's lush. So are there snakes? Is it like
Yes, so they are all the like most of the dangerous reptiles that you can think of. Yes, python, cobras,
you've seen them?
mambas. No, I haven't seen them, but I've seen the trails.
Really?
Yes, yes. You wake up in the morning and then you see that it passed overnight. So when you live in a village, or at least where I was, there were like some home remedies to say, how do you ensure that there's no snake in the house?
Right.
Right? It doesn't stay in your yard. It's problem. Yawa makhelwane, you know. So you would wake up in the morning and then you will see, that trail that it actually passed. So all sorts of snakes, green mambas, black mambas. Apparently there are some snakes that don't bite. So scorpions, yes. Centipedes,
Yeah.
those will bite, and that's very painful. Spiders is part of our daily lives.
So
Yeah.
do you still visit? Did you go back to the village? Do your kids go to the village, or is it?
Yes, we still visit. My parents still have a compound there.
Mhm.
My dad keeps cows and goats and pigs and chickens. Uh, so it's very interesting. I take my kids to go and see that. And
So you grew up in an environment, and you know, seeing you now as a powerhouse of an entrepreneur, like what triggered it? I mean, you obviously grew up in a beautiful, lush, and very homely setting. How, who did you look up to? Who was the entrepreneur in your family?
there was no entrepreneur in my family.
Mm-hmm.
I think my story is like so many South Africans out there. It's go to school, get good grades, go to university and get a good job, and the rest is history. So that was that. So I grew up, looking at my mom is a nurse. My parents now are retired, but my mom is a nurse. She started by being a teacher, and then she became a nurse. And then my dad worked in the local mine in Palabora. It's a copper, one of the biggest copper mines. So he worked there. So in my village, there's or the careers that I'm mentioning is what I would see. So I, growing up as a child, I wanted to become a teacher because teachers would eat eggs. They had a resource of eggs. And I was like, I want to become a teacher so I can eat eggs.
Why was that a big deal? Well, didn't you have eggs? Didn't you have chickens? I mean, you said you like why where does that come from?
I have no idea to this day, Miles, because like I said, my dad, my parents were working class. We
Yes.
didn't lack anything.
So there were eggs in the
There
house.
were eggs in the house, but the teachers were eating eggs at school. And
Ah, I
yeah, at
see.
school, yes.
Okay.
And I was one of those children at school where the teachers would send to go and wash their dishes after eating. So there was leftover of this food. So then I was like, being a teacher, I'll be eating eggs,
That is such an interesting story. You see, this is why we sit you on the couch. Like the proper shrink. It's like, what was it in your in your youth that made you the way you are? So it turns out it was eggs. Who knew? This is-
Yes, but then coming back to answer your question, my dad would buy me things to sell, food that is, He would buy me those knickknacks. We call them knickknacks. You would buy me like it's gum, right? And then he would buy me a concentrated sweetener to make ice pop. There was ice pop at that time.
Using Kool-Aid and stuff. Yeah.
Yes. So I'll do that and I'll go sell it. So it started with my dad with the
How
support
old were
of.
you then?
I was probably around 10, 11.
Okay.
Yeah. So so then he would say, so you'll bring these things and give it to me, and then I would prepare them and I'll sell them. So being a child myself at that time, I would eat most of it.
Eating stock.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So then my dad goes like, okay, it's time now to stock. Give me the money so I can go restock. And then the money
There was
was
no money.
not there. Yes. So I think that's how it started, my entrepreneurship journey, my parents instilling that, in
At an
me
early age.
at an early age. But where I am today, it's mostly fueled by also from my me growing up in a village. So growing up in a village, you see a lot of poverty, right? you see your friends, you see your best friend who doesn't have food, right? And food, I would say that like the our village then, I would say people had pap. Didn't put it this way. So pap was just
The
it was,
staple.
yes, but they didn't have a
Sishabo.
protein or shishebo to go with it.
Mm.
Yes. So I saw that with my friends. Me, I had a choice. Whether I want eggs, beef, chicken, the greens it from the garden. So all those things were there in my household. So it kind of like broke my heart, in a sense of seeing these children, my age group, my friends, who don't have, they are going home and not have sishebo.
And you were seeing this at like 10 years old.
Yes. Yes.
You knew that that was wrong.
I knew that was wrong, but I suppose because I was young, I suppose I mean, you can't do anything about it. It's what it is, right? So I remember once we went with my friends to go to the fields or to the wild to go and harvest morojo of some sort, right? And I remember one of the girls, said to me that I don't even understand why you are coming with us, because when you get home, at home they'll just take this thing and throw it away. They were not even going to cook for you because there's meat waiting for you at home, right?
So you were a cheese girl, basically.
I wouldn't say I was a cheese girl,
Oh, it's in
but I
relative
didn't
terms.
lack.
Yeah.
I didn't lack. Yeah, I didn't lack.
Sorry, and you had siblings.
Yes. We were born 5. Yes.
So where are you in the 5?
Number 2. I've got an older sister. I'm the
and-
second born, and then there's 3 siblings after me.
Wow. So you go harvest morojo, but the other kids could also tell that things are okay. You don't need to be doing this.
Yes. So yeah, those were yeah, that was me growing up in a village. And I think what I do now is fueled by wanting to correct that imbalance of, uh, like my best friend who was smarter than me, like she was first, I was second in class, she doesn't have, opportunities like me because of what her family setting is today, right? And when you look at that, if there's no change, children are going to be subjected to the same thing. But then I was like, okay, we need to do something. How do we help people from the villages? How do we help those that are able, capable, to be able to give them opportunities to become better their lives somehow. So I think it's that drives me to say, I know poverty, I've seen it, and it's still there. It exists today, because I come from a working class family. I have different opportunities today. So that's what drives me to be able to do what I do.
And those opportunities, because that's one thing to have them, it's another to take them, right? Like, and we know there's lots of kids who were afforded amazing opportunities, and you look today, it's like, with all those opportunities, it's like, what happened? What were the ones you took? So did you go to university? How did you get out of the village, essentially?
So I had my own self-motivation, my own, I don't even know how to call it or how to put it, but basically, going back to my family, my grandfather from my grandfather from my father's side, he came to Johannesburg. He worked here. He worked in the kitchens. He was a cook in the kitchens, and he was able to achieve so much, as someone who was a helper, in the kitchen. So I look at that and I say, someone who doesn't have education can achieve so much. And achieving so much, for example, was like my grandfather had 3 wives, meaning 3 households. My father coming from the first house. He was looking after those
3
families.
households.
3 households, and he himself he nicknamed himself like this is tree. You know, he would buy everything 3 times.
Wow.
The 80 kg 3 times, and then sugar came along 3 times, and everything 3 times. You know, you used to say that. So he looked after his children. And I said, well, if someone who doesn't have much education can do this, imagine what I can do. Then my father came along. My father got to metric level, standard 10 at his time. And then he had an opportunity to work in the mines, right, in the local mine. And then he rose through the rank to the very highest for his education level. And my father, was able to send, most of his siblings. My grandfather had 23 children, most of his siblings to university.
Wow. So even from the other households?
Yes. And he did that. And he had a prayer of his own. When you talk to him today, he tells you about a prayer of, oh God, I mean, my siblings are successful now. Can you make sure my children are successful too? So he tells us this story. But then I said to myself, okay, if my father can achieve this, so many teachers, some nurses, army here, and so forth. Like, I mean, the world is my oyster, right? So then came
and you were saying this at what stage in your life? Were you in high school? When were you thinking this?
High school.
You were very observant, right? Like, I mean, some like most kids are just living. They're not looking at the big picture. I mean, the fact that you remember this, clearly you were observant as to how things were playing out.
Yes, I suppose I was. Now you put it like that, but I like I would set these milestones or these achievement for myself. So if someone can achieve this, me, of the new generation, at that time, I can do more, right? Then came my sisters. I have 2 sisters. The one is my mom's sister, and then my sister, and then she my sisters passed with what we call nowadays a bachelor, so they went to university. So then that was another
expectation
for myself, if I can put it that way, to say, oh, they did it means I can do it, right? Because I grew up, during that time of, you pass matric is such a big thing, such a difficult thing, yeah. So I was like, okay, I can do this. If they did it, bring it on.
I know them. I live with them. They're not that bright. In fact, I said it. It's okay. Don't worry. I said it. You didn't.
But I tend to think that, my siblings have more brains than me. They're smarter than me for some reason.
Yeah, you're just saying that so that when they walk, it's like...
And then, so then I was like, okay, I'm going to pass matric and I'm going to go to university. So then I passed and I went to university. So that was, so I always had, something that I looked at to say, you know what, I can do more. And I think I still use that measure as well to say, my grandfather, my father, my sister, they achieved this, with these limited resources, So what can I achieve? I need to do more. If my father can send, 20 of his siblings to school, I need to be sending hundreds of people to school.
But then what did you go and study when you got
there? I went to study chemical engineering at the University of Johannesburg.
UJ?
Yes, UJ. Yeah.
And how did that go?
It went very well.
So you started, finished it?
So I started and I finished it. Lots of engineering studies. And
mechanical, you said?
Chemical. Chemical, yes. Yeah. People tend to think that engineering is difficult. You tell them chemical, they're like, ooh. I'm like, guys, it's just math and a bit of doing formulas here and there. Some engineering courses here and there. And then that's it.
It's
I'm
the
like,
smart person in the room, yeah?
Yes, so I graduated from the University of Johannesburg. And
Your parents must have been proud.
I hope so.
Yeah.
I hope so. I was graduate number I don't know.
Because there's that, right? So you're in a long list of the there's 21 people in that number.
Yes. But on a serious note, I would like to believe that they were very very proud. I'm sure my dad prayed
Mm.
and thanked God that two of my kids graduated at this time.
Mm.
So yeah, so they are proud. They like, oh, our investment. Thank the Lord.
Well, I mean, that's what they thought. And then you went and became an entrepreneur, and they thought you'd be living the soft life as an engineer, a chemical engineer, wearing a lab coat and getting paid well. Meanwhile, there you are, going out into the bush and getting Mopani worms from the trees and creating a business. But we'll get there. So when you finished your degree, did you go to corporate at all? What happened next?
Yes. So I got my internship with the South African breweries. And I worked for South African breweries for about 5 years.
Hmm.
Yes, so I worked in processing. So we worked in a brewery, and the first stages. In fact, the first stage. Let me say, call it the core part of making beer.
Yeah.
Yes.
Did you
So
enjoy it?
I loved it. I loved it.
Really?
Yes. Um, I think the people even made it more interesting.
Mm-hmm.
But me being me, I was there and I was like, you know what, I can't be doing just processing. There's someone up there telling me what to do, and I want to be that person. So,
I mean, if they can do it, you can. Right? Yeah.
yeah, it was just that curiosity to say, what, who makes the decisions that we have to brew or produce X amount of volumes per day, per month? What are they looking at? Why? Why do we do what we do? Why there are so many people in the breweries? Why are there retrenchments? Why are we getting jackets on during winter times? All that. So I became very curious, and this made me go back to school to study more.
Oh, so you left corporate, went back to school, or were you studying whilst you're in corporate?
So I left. I think it was after almost 2 years of being in the breweries. I went back full time to go and do a BTech baccalaureate in chemical engineering. And yeah, and then I graduated again. And then after I graduated, I went back to the breweries. Yes.
But was it at the same level, or do you go to the managerial side of it now?
It was the same level because I left for about a year. So I came in through the same level. And then I worked for another 3 years. And then I had to leave.
So you did your 10-year stint overall,
Yes.
essentially. And when you say you had to leave, what do you mean?
So I met a guy, and after meeting a guy, he took me out of the breweries, and then I left South Africa for a while.
How long were you gone?
Almost 10 years.
You were gone for a decade.
Yes.
Where did you go?
We went to Europe.
And did you work that side, or
Yes.
where in Europe were you?
So after I left South Africa and the breweries, I went to a country called the Czech Republic, Eastern Europe,
Yes.
in Prague.
Yeah, Wien. It's beautiful.
Very, very
Yeah,
beautiful.
yeah.
Very, very
But
beautiful.
Mzansi is number one. But Prague is not bad.
Yes.
It's beautiful. But,
Amen.
yeah, but South
That's
Africa.
why I'm sitting on this
yeah,
chair.
South Africa any day.
Yes. So I stayed in Prague for about 5 years. So within those 5 years of being in Prague, I got married because when I left South Africa, I was just engaged. So I got married. I studied the language. I went to the local university there.
Wow.
Some prestigious university.
So you can speak Czech?
Yes, I can speak Czech.
Wow.
Yes.
And so you were working there as well.
I was working there, yes. After I finished the university,
Yeah.
there for about a year for intensive Czech language lessons, and then I started working. Yeah,
And then you said you were only there for 5 years,
for
but you were
5 years.
overseas for 10. Where
Yes.
did you
Then
go
we
to?
went to we moved to Switzerland.
Hmm.
Yes, so we lived in Switzerland for about 4 years. Yeah.
And you also worked there.
And I worked there. So also when I was in the Czech Republic, I also studied. I studied a master's while I was in the Czech Republic.
Because I mean, studying another language, moving to a foreign country, getting married was not enough. You needed like a proper challenge, as one does. So, so you got your master's while you were there.
Yes. So I studied a master's in business administration while I was in the Czech Republic.
So an MBA essentially.
Yes, an MBA. Yeah, yes.
But I'm assuming you studied that in English.
Yeah.
It's just, you gotta ask when I'm talking to you, right? And then you went to Switzerland for another 4 years.
Yes.
And were you working in the business side of things, or were you still in the chemical engineering side of things?
So in Prague, I went into logistics. I didn't even do engineering. So I went into logistics. That's when my supply chain career started. And when I moved to Switzerland, that's when I went into the business side of it.
Okay.
Yes. So I worked in the headquarters of Johnson & Johnson family of companies. And it was headquarters for 3 continents: Africa, Middle East, and Europe. So we looked after supply chain of all those continents. So, yeah.
So you had a very cool, rich career that one, as an entrepreneur, can only dream of, because you had the technical side, and then you had operations, logistics, and then management side.
Right.
So you could look at a business from like factory floor all the way to, administration and sales and essentially managing it.
Absolutely. I can look at it from that. Yeah.
Wow.
Even that, you mentioned sales there. I think it's a weakness, but
No, I think it's a decision. You just don't like it. There's definitely nothing you have a weakness in. So, and then you decided to come back?
yes.
Mm-hmm.
I am an African. And when that African
From
soul
an
calls
African village.
Yes.
Yes. So the
Yes,
village was
fast.
calling.
The village was calling.
So Mufasa went back home. And then what? And then what happened? Like, how did that happen?
Yes. So while I was overseas, I also had 2 kids. So I have 2 boys, and in the midst of all
So they are
that,
Swiss chocolate essentially.
yes, one of them. The other one is Prague. He was
Okay.
born in Prague. Yes, yeah. So in the midst of that, become a mom. Yeah, and yes.
And so that's what also sort of like beckoned you to come home.
Not necessarily. It was also looking at we want to be in South Africa. I am South African and I want to be here. And if I'm going to make an impact in the world, it has to be at home. It has to start at home. When you live in developed countries, their problems are
Superficial.
Yes. I remember when I lived in Switzerland, there was a non-profit organization for anti-vaccines, right? Anti-vaccination.
So so people woke up every day to say they don't want vaccines to be distributed in primary health care.
Yes. People should not be getting vaccines. Children should not be getting vaccines, And I remember I looked at it and I was like, wow.
These are the problems you
These are
wish
the
we could have back home.
Yes. So it's like, nothing goes wrong there. I remember one day I went to a home affairs office equivalent. I got there was no one. It was just me. And as you walk in through the door, they're like, hello, can we help you?
But isn't it interesting that, like, you want to come home because where you are, the first world soft life issues, um actually you don't have issues, right? That's why it's called first world issues, right?
Mm.
First world problems. What, surely rationally someone would say, well, this is what I want in life, less problems. Like this is a good life. Why not raise your kids there, have, the best of first world? Rationally, why wouldn't you want that?
I mean, I think there has to be, for me, there has to be more to life than just being born, having a good life, and then die.
Mm,
Why do you exist,
mm,
right? And I feel that I will make a better impact where it's needed than to live a luxury life somewhere where people flush
mm,
drinking water on a single every day,
mm,
while here people still get water from the river,
mm.
so I feel like there's more to life than just waiting to die.
It's like what you said about your friend when you could, you know, get a decent meal at home, but you knew she didn't. It's like just because you have and you realize that someone else doesn't, it doesn't make it almost takes away from the enjoyment of the stuff you have, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
I envision a world where let us all enjoy, let us all share this bread,
Mm.
right? Someone, yes, can have a loaf, someone can have a half,
But
someone
at
can,
least we are
but
all
at
chowing.
least we
Yeah.
are all eating.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm of the view that this is how the world should be. Let the basics for people, be covered.
You know, the one thing that I've realized is that a lot of people who bitch and moan about South Africa or is people who haven't traveled. When you've traveled, firstly you realize everybody's got problems in the
Mm.
world, right? And they may vary, maybe some are superficial, but to them that's a big problem. The
Yeah.
fact that anti-vaccines, that somebody is driven by that, right? But
Yes.
in the grand scheme of things, we know there are bigger problems, right?
Right.
So that's even on the positive side. But one of the things about seeing that is the sense of purpose it gives you when you now know that, you know what, firstly, I know I can get my country to this level, or at least I can die trying.
Mm.
Secondly, I can actually have impact in my country continent. I can actually drive that to there. And I think that is like the biggest gift you can get, like the sense of purpose. Whereas the alternative is you wake up and everything works.
Yeah, yeah. I agree with you, and you know, you realize by being, South African, by being Africa, that we have a lot, there's great opportunity, to make our countries better,
Mm.
to make people's lives better, at different levels.
Mm.
And when you are world traveled, you go out there and you kind of aspire, you know we went to France over the festives, and I went to what we can call a village in France. And we got there miles. I had been in that country when my oldest son was young, so probably about 14 years ago. And I looked at the development, I looked at the
Mm.
progress of that village, right? And a part of me, I felt two things. I felt sad and I felt hopeful,
Mm.
you know. But then I felt like, you know what, maybe, our different structures of the leaders of the countries, municipalities, provincial,
National.
national, they should be there, these things of taking people, to different spaces to say, guys, this is what we should be aspiring to.
But they do go. They do. The question is because, I mean, to your point, it's like you saw it, right? And that's why you were sad and hopeful. You're sad because Well, actually, let me ask you, why were you sad?
I was sad because we've got potholes, you know.
Wait, back home.
Okay, back home we've got potholes. You know, we have energy challenges, we have water crisis, we've got uh, uh, food insecurities, we've got malnutrition of children, right? And and for me, I feel like, you know, there should be a base of this is where we are, this is where we were 40 years ago, this is where we should be, you know, 40 years later. You know, there shouldn't be a child that goes to sleep without, you know, food. There shouldn't be families that don't have food. There shouldn't be one person in any household not working, you know. So that makes me sad to say, you know, there's still a lot more, you know, as citizens that we need to do in order to assist, in order to contribute, you know, to a better country and a better tomorrow. So I think that was the sad of it, to say, you know, we have a lot of challenges. Some countries are looking at how to make things better, you know. And I'll give you an example. Those years ago when I went there, you would buy a bus ticket. This is during a busy time, right? It's festive, it's very busy. You buy a bus ticket to move around. It's like I would say between Johannesburg and Pretoria as an example, and there's quite a few villages that you can move around. And now you just go and say hello at the local tourist office, and then they give you a free ticket. You know, the fact that you are already staying at an accommodation space in that region, you qualify to get a free bus ticket, which you ride any of the public transport with it for the time that you are there. And I was just like, oh, mahala.
And,
You
and,
know?
and, and you thought the reason why we were not there, hence the sadness versus hopeful, you thought maybe it's because our leadership doesn't have exposure to these things, as perhaps the reason why we haven't moved in a similar fashion.
Yes, it's partly. It's partly. Exposure helps you to think differently. Yeah.
You honestly don't believe they have the exposure.
Let's even start with, you know, let's do local tourism. You know, let's from my village come to Johannesburg and go and ride the Gautrain. Let's start there, you know, and then go to KwaZulu Natal, go and walk the promenade, you know, to see that, you know, as me sitting in this office, bearing this office, what can I do in my local space to make it at least nyana, that inspiration, I feel.
Is it perhaps not a leadership more than an exposure thing? Because I would argue, to your point, just doing your, like, the local municipality or your local village or district, surely people know to do that. Or am I assuming too much? Or am I, because I've got the exposure, I think it's default? I don't know. I'm genuinely intrigued, because as an entrepreneur, you look for solutions to solving the problems. You don't just say this and maybe look to blame. The reason you were sad is because you think, how can we fix it, right? So how can we fix it genuinely?
Fixing it goes back to the basics. Goes back to the basics. You know, like let's get our education right. Let every child go to school.
We spend more than
Let's.
any country on education. We do. And I'm asking you these things because I agree, but we do. We're one of the biggest spenders on education. So then where's the problem? Because we outpace almost every developed country, even rand for rand, in terms of our education.
Right, right. I mean, I think there's a few, you know, a lot of solutions. If people are willing to be advised.
Hmm.
Yeah, yeah.
I think maybe that's where it sort of, is the underlying cause. Like when you heal a wound,
Mm,
we can put band-aids all we want. We
mm.
can say it's exposure. We can say it's this, it's that. But if we don't go to the underlying thing, in other words, if a Wendy doesn't work in that village and has the same exposure, vision, but more importantly, leadership, I think it's almost impossible to get us out of the quagmires we find ourselves.
Um, if the will is there to listen, if the will is there is to listen,
Mm.
things will move. And I'll give you an example by what I mean. My dad, he said in many communities in his local village when we were young, and what my dad did together with other community members, where they made sure that the local high school was built,
Mm.
right? They made sure that the local clinic was built. So in my village, there's a primary was there, and then they ensured that the high school was built and the clinic was built. And how did they do it? They came together, as community members or
Mm.
as a committee. They went to the local king. The local king, I mean,
Like a
my
chief.
chief is what we have in the village.
Mm.
So there's a king because there's a few villages that fall under him. So
Mm.
this would be Ndabezita Dzumeri. So there's another stand called Kakaka Dzumeri. Then they went to him and they said, we want to build a high school, right? And back then it was the homelands, the Gazankulus. And then they said, well, if you contribute, you basically, the long and short of it, if you put the first brick, we'll come and finish the high school for you. And that's what they did.
And the other guys came and finished it.
Yes, yes. Same thing with the clinic.
Mm.
The community, you put the first brick, we'll come in and finish it for you. We'll bring in nurses from that time it was Guyani, and then those things happened, and then the people in the villages were even encouraged to say you can go to the teachers college so that you can become a teacher in the local high school. You can go to a nurses college, which is what my mother did, right? So that you can serve your community. You are community members. You can serve the community, and that's how it happened. So it's that thing of the leadership. When people, the communities come with solutions,
Mm.
and usually the people have solutions,
Mm.
right? To say, I'm willing to listen, and I think it's a very good idea. Let's look at how we implement it.
I love that story. Because it's both sides, right? It's now leadership, but it's also great followers, right? Your dad and all of them coming together and saying, we're not just gonna sit and be helpless. We're going to put the first break, right? So I really think, to me, that's actually maybe the secret ingredient that's missing. I think there's a lot of people who've learned to be helpless, so they just wait for someone to come and save us, essentially, right? And I think that's an awesome story. Oh, I thought you were saying something. Boss. I actually, honestly, I love that story. My biggest frustration. So I sit on a number of WhatsApp groups, some with entrepreneurs, some with captains of industry, whatever. But everybody just bitches and complains, and everybody re-articulates the problem. We know the problem. You know what I mean? Like, no one, even if they mention the solutions, again, it's just more and more talk. Why I love your story is because people realize, hey, we don't have a school, we don't have a hospital, and then did something about it, right? And I think with you coming back and starting your business, I think that's the leadership that is required. We can't sit and wait for whoever. it's up to you and I. It's up to the people in the WhatsApp groups to keep quiet, stop talking, and actually go and getting stuff done. So you came back then. You went into entrepreneurship. I'm assuming you didn't go back into corporate.
Yes. So came back to South Africa and went into entrepreneurship. I started a business within the fashion industry.
Oh,
Yes.
okay.
So when I was living in Europe, it was the time of online shopping. It was at its hype, and at that time, it was even like you can get big discounts by just buying online. So I took that concept and I came and I implemented it here at home, and I would buy clothing, I would buy fashion accessories, and then I would sell them online.
So like drop shipping.
Yes, yes. And then I ran that business for about 5 years.
Oh wow.
Yes. Then I got to a space where I was like, it's not going in the direction that I want it to be. It's not. It generated good income for the first 3 years, and then the rest of the 2 years, the income was just declining. So it didn't make sense for me to continue with that business. So I decided to close it. And then that's when I decided to say, you know what, let me brush up my CV and send it out. Then I got a job as a transport manager.
Sorry, before you even get there, like, but how was it? Because that was your first stint as an entrepreneur, right? Was it scary? You've got kids. Like, how was it?
I think it was. It wasn't scary, but it was interesting because it needed me to get out of my comfort zone. I needed to be out there and be selling. I needed to be out
I
there.
keep telling you.
And networking, right? And that was the scary part. To say now I have to go to the function and then I have to network. I have to talk to strangers. And yeah, I mean, I managed. Let me put it this way. I managed, and yeah. Yeah.
Do you think because you're a global citizen at that point, not many things could scare you? I mean, if you've lived somewhere in the world where you were a minority and all of, like, do you think your tolerance level for uncertainty was a little bit more bolder than most people?
I would say bold, but more naive. To say that my value proposition here, it's outstanding. This is what.
So why wouldn't anybody use it or buy it?
Exactly.
Like, duh, it's obvious. If it was that easy, né?
Yes.
It's like the best on merit. How? Buy.
Yeah, so I think I was naive in that sense. And the systems and processes that I created for them, they were working like a nice oiled machine.
Like Swiss chocolate, yeah.
Yes. Yes, yeah. So one of the biggest challenges that I learned there was that being in the fashion industry, it's a very, very quick, rapid change of product. Yes. So then I was not able to catch up with all those changing seasons. And then that made it very, very difficult to continue to offer an appealing product. Yeah, so that's when the sales started declining. But yes, it was that naiveness of,
But it's also a massively great trait, being naive, because I think as an entrepreneur, it's one of the things to you, whatever idea or business must be like a no-brainer. Like, why is anybody doing this? So otherwise, if you didn't have that naivete, you would sort of convince yourself not to starting, right?
yes.
So there's value to it. And then how did you end up building this chocolate empire that you currently run?
It started from the very first time I moved out, or not moved out, I went to live overseas. So I grew up in my village, and in my village we are blessed with the natural resource of amasonja. Masonja is Mopani caterpillar, and it's also very well known as Mopani worms, which is we're working very hard to
To
change
change
that
that, yeah.
name. Yes, it's incorrect. I'm putting it out there.
Why?
It's a caterpillar. It's not a worm, and there's a difference, in terms of a worm
And
and
the
a
caterpillar.
caterpillar. Yes, yes.
Okay.
So we, so because I grew up in this village, and then we have masonja, we get them every year, and it's one of those things that my parents, their parents and forefathers used to do. It's December time or it's April time, and then it's harvesting time. So then we'll go out into the forest and then we'll harvest. But because we live in a village surrounded by the trees, you just harvest in your back door. And even if you don't want to harvest,
It's
when
there.
it's there,
Yeah.
when their life cycle comes, they
It's
come
there.
down and they are walking around
Yes.
everywhere in your yard.
Protein everywhere.
Yes, free protein.
Yeah.
Oh Lord. So when I moved around, even when I was studying, at UJ, it's like you don't easily find it. It's very difficult to find it. You need to go to certain spaces, to find it. You find it like in informal settlement. So when I was even overseas, I'll take it overseas as well. So then my husband said to me that you should look into selling these things because you love them so much. Wherever we are, you take them with, right? So I was like, yeah, whatever. Then he's like, okay, write a business case, and then I sat down one day and I wrote a business case. This was 10 years before I actually started the Matomani business. Yes. Then 10 years later, after I finished corporate, so I started my first business. Then I went back to corporate, and then I came out, and then I started Matomani. So then I went and I found that business case, And when I wrote the business case, then what was wrong with it, or not viable, was that selling mashonja only, it won't make business sense. So 10 years later, I came up with a solution to say, what else can we do with it, right? And then doing a bit of research, and I realized...
When you're saying selling it just by itself, you meaning not processed, not it's just selling the caterpillar by itself.
Correct, correct. So it's like maybe semi-processing, because when we harvest, we
dry them. Yeah.
So then that's when I did a bit of research, or during COVID times. I said to myself that I'm going to go back to business, and then the industry that I'm going to go to is food, right? Why food is a necessity.
Sorry, is that now after you went back to corporate after the first business?
Yes.
What you decided that you wanted to go into a food space as opposed to even fashion or chemical?
Correct.
So where did you go? The corporate, like what?
So I went into a food security space.
Okay.
So it was a testing lab. So we'll test different types of food samples from across, South Africa and Africa.
So by the time you started Matomani, then you were already in the food ecosystem by then?
Yes. So then I said, you know what, there's a bigger challenge in terms of solving global challenges. So when I researched the Mopani caterpillar in terms of what it has, in terms of nutrition, what it is beyond us just eating it, then I learned that it's a superfood. It's got 60% natural protein. It's got the whole amino profile that we need. And then I said, also, like in my research, I found out that, with the global population growing, to 9 billion, there's going to be a shortage of protein. And that's when I knew that this is a great opportunity to use amasonja as a source of protein, a source
and
of
were you doing that
alternative
research
protein.
while you were in a corporate? Were you doing, and did you actually put them through your lab, or was this something totally different?
It was something totally
Okay.
different. It was something totally different. So I was reading some literature, and then that's when I learned of this profile. So, but then when I started working on them, so I took my own sample and I sent it,
To the labs.
into the labs. I didn't send it to the lab that I went. Yes, and then it came back and it confirmed the nutrition.
Why had no
profile.
one done this before?
Um, I suppose an honest answer is I'm not certain as to why someone has not done it before. I know that there was one project that was done in the rural areas in terms of collecting and harvesting the Mopani caterpillar, but that didn't go far. But I suppose also with regards to where the consumer is today, we have problems, and problems means that the protein, the current protein as it is, your traditional, which is your beef, your chickens.
It's fast and readily available. It's cheap.
Yes, but but the bigger problem is what they are doing to the environment, right? There's another side of it in terms of cruelty and all that. But basically, when you look at the population growth, just the amount of land that it requires, to grow, the animals, the cows, the world is not getting any bigger in terms of size or land, right? It's the population. So we need an alternative in a sense of alternative protein, right? Right. And then the second thing is the methane. That the cows are producing. Cows are the second biggest contributor to the global
greenhouse gases.
Yes. So it's to look at a solution, and that number is not coming down. I know that there are big initiatives to work on reducing that, but it's not
coming down.
Yeah. So we're looking at that, and also the feed. That's required for the cows and the chickens. You require land. It's agriculture products. So you require land for the animals. You require land for the food. So it's taking so much land. So that's why these insects are that solution.
So what does your business actually do? What are your products? What do you make?
So we make protein and energy bars. So we take the protein from the Mopani, and then we process it into these bars.
So what, you ground and make it into some sort of a flour powder?
Right. So when we harvest the caterpillars, we cook them and then we dry them. And then from the drying process, it goes through a milling process where it becomes powder. And then from that powder, we use the powder as an ingredient into making protein and energy bars. So
wow, I've had them. And if somebody didn't tell you, you would never know.
No.
But why do you cook them, by the way?
Traditionally, that's how it's been done. So we just adopted the same process. Yeah. So going forward, we'll be doing research into, if we don't cook them, what will the protein content look like, or the nutrition profile look like. We'll be busy working with some university to try and study more into the science of these amazing.
What has been the feedback? What are people saying?
So the feedback has been overwhelmingly good in a sense that we've got 4 products in our range, right? So we package masonja as they are. So this is for someone who already eats them, and then those that are looking for protein. There are people out there that are looking for protein. So this is the protein that they are adopting. And then we mill it into the powder. The powder is a protein powder. We don't add anything. We mill it and then we package it. So
I can add it to my pap and stuff.
Yes, pap. A lot of people are buying it for their smoothie or a shake.
Oh, that's also.
A lot of moms are putting it in their kids' cereal in the morning, so they add nutrition.
Oh, that is so cool.
Yes.
When can we get some more for Kwaliso? We used to get the caterpillar. I think the powder sounds cool. I'm not even joking. Like, can we get that? Like, yesterday, ne? Okay,
Yes. We'll
good.
provide you with the powder.
Mm-hmm.
And then we make the energy and the protein bars. And then we have a biscuit, right? So the biscuit, let me tell you about the protein and the energy bars. We call them love at first bite. Because we have not had a single person that tasted the bar and said they don't like it
I
or
can vouch for that. Honestly, I really can. It's that good.
yes, yeah.
It's
So
world class, actually, to be
it's
honest with you.
it's amazing. People love it because it people nowadays what we don't even tell people, like we would put it into people's faces to say, oh, we've got amasonja in here. So now we just put it there. We put a notice, and then people love chocolate.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then
Yeah.
they come in and then they taste everything and then they love it.
Mm.
And then they start asking questions, right? And then they're like, oh, I didn't know, but it's so good. It doesn't taste like it.
Because you
Nothing.
also
Are you
mentioned
sure?
when we were in New York, because you've taken it everywhere in the world, and people love it, like you said. But one of the tricks you've done is, I think you don't have sugar because it's a healthy bar, right?
Yes.
So what did you use instead of sugar? I think you use dates or something.
Yeah. Wow, you know our product. Thank you, Mom. Yes. So we use dates, in our bars. We didn't want to add any sugar into our products because it's such a healthy ingredient as it is. So we wanted to complement it. So we put about it's like a bar will have about 5 ingredients, and then that's it. So that's what makes it good. We're getting feedback like, what, it doesn't have an aftertaste.
Yes.
It eats well. Like once you start eating it, you don't want to stop. So people are receiving it very, very well, and which we
Love
are
at
very
first bite.
yes.
And then you said you've got the biscuit as well. That's super interesting.
Yes. So
What is that about?
it's a protein biscuit. We started with one recipe, which now there are people within the hospitality industry that have asked us to make more biscuits so that they can also put it into their spaces. So that has been a great journey. So the biscuit was just to have a protein biscuit that tastes good, and for anyone to snack, at any time. So yeah.
Is there an opportunity for that to do like, organizations like the UN or work with an organization called SA Harvest, where we work in communities where there's challenges of food insecurity, whether it's a flood, whatever like the case might be. But often you need stuff that is massively high in protein, very accessible, got good shelf life. Is there not an opportunity for you to look into that space?
Absolutely, there is an opportunity, and it's a space that we need to work on. But yeah, our products are quite
Premium.
no.
They are. They are.
Yes, they are, but
They're the
that's not what
best for a
I
reason.
wanted to say.
No, don't be shy. You are what you are. You're doing, it's like you learned from the Swiss. I mean, what can we say,
So I wanted to say,
Yes.
our products are highly nutritious, and they have a very a long shelf life. So they are quite robust in order to be able to work with organizations like SA Harvest, the UN, and it's to sit down and have that conversation. In the past 3 years, we have grown in such a way that we can now start talking volumes and be able to serve those type of
Organization.
yeah.
So speaking of next, like what's next, and I'd like to maybe couch that with saying, if I had a check, um, that I could sign, how much would you need, and what would you need that money for, in your mind, to achieve whatever end goal you would like in the next 5 to 10 years?
Okay, so a check. Thank you very much.
I said if.
Okay, so a check would have to come with or let me start like this. In the past 3 years, I have learned that money is not everything. It solves and makes you be able to, scale. However, the biggest thing that we will ask that check to come with is distribution and networks. Right, because we can have all this money, but if we can't be able to get our products, to the consumer, and then we are sitting there with debt that that's stressing us. So what we would do is we would focus on scaling the business. We will focus on domesticating the caterpillar production, which is something that's in the pipeline for ourselves. And also just grow our sales channel, right? And more of our presence. We need to create partnerships, in the right spaces, right? So we would allocated the money or the resource into growing the business, and also export. Our product is ready for exporting, and we'll also channel those funds into having a global presence.
And you know how I know, like, that you legit, like, it's very simple. I've said this to anybody who will listen. I said with VC angel investors, and I've always said, don't give money to anybody that you can't pick up the phone and help unlock and open doors on that side. Because that money that you're giving them is just one more burden then I have to carry, manage, and pay. But if you can give them to be catalytic and do the operations, the scaling, the infrastructure stuff, but the thing that must be attached to that is the ability to phone someone and say, hey guys, Nestle or X and Y or Massmart, whoever, this is the best product. Buy 3 tons of this, 17 pallets of this, because that for you is how, firstly, you can get your product to market, use the scale that you've just created, but most importantly, pay back the money,
Yes,
right?
yes, yes, yes.
Because you can only do that with sales.
Absolutely, yeah. So now we're looking at how do we change our top line? Yeah, how do we change our top line? And with top line comes all the dreams with it.
Right.
We for community. I mean, we have as Matomani, we have for 3 pillars, right? It's wellness, which means you are eating great food, great protein, and also taking care of your body and those around you. It's about community, the community that harvest, this amazing amasonja, and looking after that and empowering them, right? And then the third is the environment. Through the community, we'll be able to look after the environment. So with our top line growing at an exponential rate,
Yeah, able to do all this.
everything else, it's makes it easy. Yeah. So no, yeah, I agree with you. The check has to come with distribution.
Otherwise, it's hard.
Otherwise,
Yeah.
yeah.
When I can speak to you forever, like, I'm firstly, I love your passion for what you do. I love your resilience. I love your just clarity in not just from a product perspective or where you want to take it, but how you want to right the wrongs, the injustice of you can't be the one who's chowing and someone next to you is hungry. In fact, I heard somewhere, and I thought this is such a great insight. Like, inequality is expensive for everybody because you can't. There's no natural person who can enjoy the rewards of your hard work if people around you are struggling. It just doesn't work, right?
Yeah.
So I admire that you decided to leave what could have been an otherwise very comfortable lifestyle that many people would have taken, and rightly so. But you said, nah, we have a country, we have a continent, and more importantly, instead of talking about the problems, you're working hard at fixing them. So I can only wish you nothing but success and Godspeed.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate that, Miles.
No, and I mean it sincerely. I'm not just saying this stuff. I really, really, really mean it, because I believe if you succeed, you're like that rising tide that's gonna lift so many boats.
Yeah.
So yeah, trust me, I will do my best to be the wind in those sails.
Thank you so much. And I just want to end up by saying that we appreciate the support We grow because there's someone that says we see potential, we see this entrepreneur, and we really appreciate that support. Everything that's happening in Matomani, it's about the people out there that says, we see you, we're doing a great thing, and then there is support throughout the whole stakeholders, from our customers, the suppliers, our supporters, our coaches, our mentors. So thank you so much, Miles. We
No,
really
thank
appreciate
you.
all the support as well. Yeah.
Thank you. Thanks, Wendy.
Thank you.